So we have sadly now had two attempts on the former president's life, as you know. When we look at these events in the scope of the election, do they account for swaying any of these all-important, undecided, independent voters? What impact did these events have on the polls, if any?
The effect, I would say, is inconclusive so far, Kelly, from the second assassination attempt. We do now have some polls that at least encompass some of the time since that event last week, and they don't, frankly, show any particular rise for the former president. There's, for example, an NBC News poll out today that has Kamala Harris leading by 4 or 5 points nationwide. Now, in relation to the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, the polls, there was some evidence that the former president rose in the polls after that. But you have to remember that that first attempt was right in the midst of the crisis that had engulfed President Biden after his disastrous debate performance. So it's hard to really say with any obvious credibility that these affect the polls in a big way.
You know, we know Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's opening a parallel investigation into this second attempt just 7 days ago. Why do you believe there's such a lack of trust in the FBI, Niall? And a big question now over who should handle this investigation moving forward.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is lack of trust among whom. I mean, Governor DeSantis has his own political reasons to state that lack of trust or to ally himself with former President Trump, now that Mr. Trump defeated Governor DeSantis so soundly in the Republican primary. There is a separate issue about security procedures and security failures, particularly in relation to the Butler assassination attempt, where a man evidently had a line of sight to a former president speaking in the open air. I mean, we don't need to be a genius about security to see that that is a problem. The distrust of the FBI, I would see, as more of a partisan topic.
You know, former President Trump, he made headlines today when he said he won't run again if he loses this election. A lot of interpretations about how his posture was making those comments. What do you make of the comments on their face at this hour of the race, as well as saying no to another debate with Harris?
So I think there's a degree of ambivalence as to what exactly he meant about not running again, because did he mean if he loses, he won't run again? Or did he not wish to entertain the possibility that he will lose this year? I think that is a key ambiguity in what he said. As far as his demeanour is concerned, his demeanour does fluctuate from time to time. I wouldn't read too much into it. The decision or the desire not to debate Harris again, I think, comes from the fact that she was widely perceived to have won the first encounter really by quite a clear margin. And there was some evidence of a minor polling bump for her in the aftermath. I don't expect the former president would want to repeat that sort of defeat again, though, of course, the counter-argument is maybe he could perform better this time and make up some of this deficit.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to see how this unfolds. Niall Stanage, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.